Hey folks, it's Andrew, and let's talk about Google Sheets. So this is going to be kind of a technical video that shows one way to move data around inside of Google Sheets. So I want you to imagine that you are an instructional coach who is observing multiple teachers as you fill out your reflection forms and your timekeeping and these kinds of things. There's value in being able to see all of that data together, like what did I do or who did I visit on this day. But there's also value in being able to see that data disaggregated by teacher. So who did I see and what were all the visits I made with individual teacher A or individual teacher B. And so what I want to show you today is how you can use a Google form to gather all of that data, which is really useful because Google Forms works really nicely on mobile so that you can just quickly enter the data that you need to enter in a Google form on your phone. And then when you get back to your computer, you can have that Google Sheet set up to disaggregate that data. So here's the form I'm talking about, and for the sake of the conversation, I set up just a very simple form, which includes 3 teachers, one named Heidi, one named Jen, and one named Sam, and then has 3 data points, data point 1, 2, and 3. Google Sheets is one of the ways in which you can look at that data once you've entered it. So this is the Google Sheet that is associated with that Google form, and you can see that I have entered some data into the form already so that we can look at how it moves around. You can look down here and see form responses 1. That's how you know that this particular sheet is where all of the data that's being entered into the form is being collected together. Okay, now what I've done is I've added individual sheets for each of the teachers with the idea that all of the data will live here in form responses. In each of the other sheets, you're going to see just the data for those individual teachers. We're going to use a spreadsheet formula called a query. Now, what a query does is it allows us to target a set of data and then sets the parameters whereby we select only certain types of data and move it from where it is to where we want it to be. So in this specific instance, we are going to ask this formula to look through all of the data in form responses and pull over any row that meets the condition of being for any specific teacher that we'll set for that sheet. Okay, so let's take a look at what this looks like. So I created the new sheet called, and I named it Heidi. And then I went up to cell A1, and in cell A1, I typed this formula in. Well, that's really little probably on your screen. Let me make that a little bit larger. There we go. Okay, so you can see that I've written equals, that tells Sheets that it's a formula, and then query, and then I've opened parentheses, and there's 3 pieces here, okay? First, I'm telling it where I want it to look. What data set am I querying? Okay, both the name of the sheet where it's found and the range of cells that I want it to look in. Next, I tell it what data I want it to pull over and the conditions whereby that data gets pulled over. So you'll notice it says form responses 1. That's the name of the sheet where all the data lives. With that, okay, and I had to put that in an apostrophe on either side so that it knows it's looking for a proper noun. And then the exclamation point is a signal that says we're looking over this range, and I put A1:G51, just a nice big range of data from form responses 1. And then I put a comma and a space, and then this, in quotation marks, select A, B, C, D, and E. Those are the column names. Remember, columns in spreadsheets are given a letter name. Select A, B, C, D, and E, where B equals, and then in apostrophes, I put Heidi. Okay, where B equals Heidi. So basically what I'm saying is I want you to search through form responses 1 from cell A1 to cell G51. I want you to select all the data where Heidi is listed as the name in teacher name. And so if I go over here to the Jen tab, it's the same query formula, except instead of Heidi, it says Jen. And over here in the Sam tab, it's the same query formula, except instead of Jen or Heidi, it says Sam. Okay? So the question becomes, does this run in real time? Let's add a couple of responses to our sheet here. And I'll signal new data entry by putting zeros in all the data points so we can test it. Okay, so I can verify on the form responses 1 sheet that those 3 entries did get logged in the Google form. So if we go over to Heidi, we should see 1 new response with all zeros in the data point. Look at that. Jen has 1 new row of data, 1 new row of data with all zeros in the data points. And Sam likewise, 1 new row of data. So it brought it over. Now, a couple things to think about as you set this system up. You notice that I had a drop-down menu for the teacher names. I would highly recommend, to the point where it's nearly essential, that you use a drop-down menu for whatever field you're going to query. Because if I were to type Heidi accidentally with all lowercase letters or all uppercase letters, that query wouldn't recognize it, because I typed in capital H, lowercase e, lowercase I, lowercase d, lowercase I in the query formula. And so it'll only be looking for that combination of letters. So if it's all capitals, won't recognize it. If it's all lowercase, won't recognize it. If this is Heidi Smith and I'm in a hurry and I absentmindedly type in Heidi Smith or Mrs. Smith or whatever, won't recognize it. So by using a drop-down menu for whatever field you're trying to query, you will keep that data high quality as it goes in there, so that you're not having to then go and filter through all the data by hand anyway, which is exactly what you were hoping to avoid. So there's a short lesson on Google Sheets and Google Forms. Let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing you around.